So in this particular video, we are looking at the neural connections that control eye movements. So what you need to know is that we have about two types of eye movements, which we are going to cover in the next part of this video. We have what you call fixation movements. Fixation, that's if let's say you're looking at something steadily without moving the eyes. Then we have what we call saccadic movements. What are these saccadic movements? They are also called jumping movements. Let's say someone is trying to ride a bicycle. Of course, you have to move your eyes from one area to another because the bicycle is moving. You get the point? Whereas fixation is you remaining fixed at one point. We are going to cover that in the next part. So the connections, I've tried to sketch out something small here. This is our brain. This is our brain, and it has two areas, as we are going to see. Then we have our brain stem. So brain stem has about 6 nuclei, which we are going to look at. And the first one is what we call the oculomotor nuclei, which we have seen. So this is where the oculomotor nerves originate and move to the eye. Get. Then we have the trochlear nerves also coming from that trochlear nucleus here. And then we have the abducens nucleus, where the abducens nerve leaves the brainstem to innervate the eye. So later on we shall look at the exceptions, I mean the uniqueness about each of these nerves, especially the trochlear nerve, which is the main man here, who is unique, where he's being the smallest nerve, how he leaves the brainstem dorsally, the only nerve to decussate before leaving the brainstem. We shall look at that. So we are seeing another nucleus here. This is called the vestibular nucleus, and it's primarily the body's equilibrium control center, the vestibular nucleus. And then we have another nucleus here, which is the pretectal and the superior colliculus. So this is just in the brainstem, and we are looking at a connection from the vestibular nucleus moving straight up to the oculomotor nucleus. So this is we have a connection between the vestibular nucleus and the oculomotor nucleus, which means that information from the vestibular or equilibrium, about equilibrium, can actually be used to direct eye movements. That's what it implies. So what's this long connection? It has a name, and it's known as the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Medial longitudinal fasciculus. I believe I've written it well. Don't mind about the mixture. Okay, let's correct something small. Longitudinal fasciculus. So that's the connection between the vestibular and the oculomotor. And what's the importance of this connection? So you read in your textbook and they'll tell you that the connection is important in what we call the reciprocal innervation. Reciprocal innervation. So what is this reciprocal innervation you're talking about? Is when one of the muscles of the eye moves the eye medially while the other one moves it laterally. That's what we call the reciprocal innervation. So that connection is important in that reciprocal innervation, ensuring that as some fibers are causing medial movement of the eye, others will cause the lateral abduction. So that aside, we also have information coming from the pretectal nucleus into the oculomotor nucleus, and from the superior colliculus into the oculomotor nucleus still. But where is this information coming from actually? This information from the pretectal and the superior is primarily from the brain. So it's from this visual area. Of course, we know that this is the occipital lobe, where we have the primary visual cortex in the calcaline region. So we shall have information from the occipital lobe, that's primary visual cortex, feeding into these. There are two tracts. Yes, there are two tracts. One going to the pretectal and then the other one to the superior colliculus. Then we have another part here in the frontal lobe, which will send information, also contributing and moving to the oculomotor nucleus. So shall let us see that these two regions are important. First of all, the region in the frontal lobe and one in the occipital lobe. When we are looking at fixation movements, there are two types. We have what we call voluntary. That's if you may be moving your eye to look for something around you. And then they are involuntary. These are the ones where you look at something after finding it. So the frontal lobe has that area for controlling the voluntary part of it, and then involuntary for the occipital lobe. So that's it about the connections. We shall have to look at the fixation movements, and after we shall look at the reflexes. So we look at the fixation movements. So I said we have two types of movements, that is the saccadic movements and fixation movements. Fixation movements. So what are these saccadic movements? I define saccadic movements as movements whereby you find that, let's say you're trying to read a book. So if you're trying to read a book, you find that you don't actually notice that you're moving from, all your eyes are moving, in that they are moving from one line to another. So the jumping of your eyes moving from one target to another is what we call saccadic movement. You get? So in other words, I'll define it as shifting of the target from one place to another on the retina. You get? Those are saccadic movements. So why do we have saccadic movements? That should be the question everyone should ask him or herself. So the main reason as to why you have saccadic movement is what I've just said, is that it's important in introducing new targets on the retina. That's why you have saccadic movements. So you find that they involve control. The control involves the parietal and the subcortical regions. So if you want more details, you can check it out, but for as now, you need to know what saccadic movements are, their importance, and their control. So I've said that it involves the parietal and the subcortical regions. You get? So another one is the fixation movements, which I say that they're divided into two. We have the voluntary and the involuntary. If you missed that part, you can go back to the other part which you have just covered. So the fixation movements are whereby you look at something like when your eyes are fixed on it, like how you're looking at your screen, and you're looking at it, you're not shifting your eyes. That's what we call fixation movements. And what you need to know that actually, as we have these fixation movements, the eyes cannot be fixed, like forever fixed. There are always some slight movements, and the importance of these slight movements, I will tell you it is because if I have, we know that in senses we have something called adaptation. So if I try to get a continuous stimuli, you get continuous stimulus, you find that my neurons can easily adapt and end up reducing their response gradually. However, if I introduce new stimulus, it would mean that it would appear as if it's new. So these slight movements that occur within the fixation movements are actually important in preventing neuroadaptation. So what you need to know that these slight movements actually are part of the fixation movements themselves. You get? So I'll say that we have three types. We have what we call micro. Let me use black. We have what we call microsaccades, like how we've had Saccadic. So we have what we call microsaccades. Then we have what we call ocular drifts. Then we have what we call ocular. This is supposed to be LA. Ocular drifts. Then you have what we call ocular micro tremor. Movements. So how do they differ? These are the high speeds movements or rapid movements. Then these are the slow movements that occur, and these are just high frequency oscillations, if I may call them. So these are all part of the fixation movements. But why do we have them? It's primarily to prevent the neuroadaptation. So with that said, I believe we have a clear understanding the difference between the saccadic and the fixation movements.